Go.
Okay. In 7th grade science, we've been talking about all the 6 kingdoms, and we're going to talk, don't look at me like that. All right, we're going to actually tell the kids, think about the kingdom you know the most about, which is the animal kingdom. That's the kingdom you started learning about before you were in preschool. And what we're going to do is we're going to take all the animals that exist on this planet, but we're going to break it up into 6 smaller groups called phyla that the kids can understand. Now there are 22 members of, there are 22 phyla of animals, but we're only going to look at 6. We're going to start out looking simple. So the first phyla is going to be the phyla Cnidarians. All right, Cnidarians. The C is silent. Well, what's so unique about Cnidarians? You've experienced them if you have been to the ocean and seen one of these organisms floating in the water. The interesting thing about Cnidarians, they show radial symmetry as a body plan. Well, what does that mean? It means if you take the top part of this Cnidarian and you flip him over and look at him, his entire body is arranged in a circle with a mouth in the center. Now, when you look at a Cnidarian, you can see a top and you can see a bottom, but you don't have a head, you don't have a tail, you don't have a front, you don't have a back. But what's the coolest thing about Cnidarians that distinguishes that phyla from all the others is that they have stinging tentacles. And these stinging tentacles aid in their ability to feed. So here's how they do it. Located on these little tentacles here are little tiny stinging cells called nematocysts. Here's what's cool about them. You go running into the water. The Cnidarian was there before you were. And its tentacles sway in the water back and forth. And you just happen to come in contact with one of those swaying tentacles. Well, located on these tentacles are little tiny cells called, again, nematocysts. And they look sort of like this. Got a trigger hair on them, and inside of that cell there's a little poison sac with a sort of like wire type organelle attached to it with a little barb on the end. Your leg touches that little trigger hair, and what happens is the little trigger hair opens up and out flies that little poison sac with that little dart attached. It goes right into your skin and you feel it. That's the cool thing about Cnidarians, because they use all these little stinging cells to capture smaller fish or smaller organisms. That poison paralyzes them. And they'll take those little tentacles and they'll just stuff it right into their mouth and start to feed. Nothing to this organism, very simple, 2 cell layers deep, no internal organs, not highly complex whatsoever. And that's the first phyla of animals that we looked at. Second phyla of animals is the phyla known as Annelida, Latin for annelids. Now, we know these because we've all seen earthworms before. And what's unique about this phyla is that their bodies are tube-shaped. And the other cool thing about them is that they are segmented. They have no internal skeletal structure. And just like Cnidarians, they're classified as invertebrates, which means they have no skeleton, they have no hard bones. But earthworms do have a mouth located at this end. They do have 5 hearts. They do have a crop. They have a gizzard, just like a bird. They have intestines. And you might have heard people say that if you take an earthworm and chop it in half, you get 2. No, if you take an earthworm and chop it in half, you get a dead one. So, what they actually do is, in through their mouth, they ingest soil. And out of that soil, they pull out decayed plant and animal parts. That gets digested and broken down in their crop and their gizzard. And if you've ever noticed on the outside of an earthworm, there is a little area, ignore that, that sort of looks like it's smooth. Well, that's actually a site where they reproduce. But from that site almost all the way down internally through the rest of this earthworm is one long intestine. So, whatever dirt they ingest here, they actually, if you want to know, poop it out the end down here. And because of this phyla of organisms, the top part of our soil is churned over or aerated so that plant roots can actually get down in the soil. So, unique characteristics of this phyla: long tube-like bodies divided into segments. They do have internal organs, unlike the jellyfish that do not have internal organs. And both of these phyla belong to invertebrates. Okay, now we're going to get a little bit more complicated, and we're going to get a lot more organisms, because the next phyla is actually going to be arthropods or arthropods. Now, example of an arthropod. Where are my arthropods? Examples. Here we go. These are arthropods. Scorpions. What's so unique about a scorpion? Scorpion number 1. Scorpion number 2. The partial shell of a horseshoe crab. A butterfly. And if you think about wonderful lobsters and crabs and shrimp, they have hard exoskeletons. They're still classified as invertebrates. They don't have any bones on the inside, but hard exoskeletons on the outside. And they also have jointed appendages. Think about a crab leg. If you think about a crab leg, it's got joints, just like your wrist or your elbow or your shoulder. And they can actually use them somewhat like you can. Smooth, not smooth, but sort of jagged type reactions. Arthropods have highly developed systems. They've got excretory systems, digestive systems. But the cool thing about arthropods is they're found in all environments. On land, in the water, freshwater, saltwater. We sometimes refer to them as crustaceans, and here's what I tell the kids. The next time you decide to eat that little sand vein along the back of your shrimp, you need to stop and think that that's the intestines. The brown stuff is poop, the crunchy stuff is sand. That's why sometimes when we bite down on these things, that's what we actually put in our mouth. But remember, exoskeletons. You step on an arthropod, it's going to go crunch. All right.